We don't know why there is this focus of gambling. And other than that, it's on your fingertips and it's maybe potentially a high that somebody is looking for. And I could never understand it. Like in the locker rooms that we had, guys are playing dice and they're doing these different particular pieces. And I'm like, I'm about to go to my meeting room and go get on a Zoom and like read an email or something. Like you guys just like, there's a competitive edge that goes into gambling. No Free Lunch is presented by T. Rowe Price. The information provided on this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified financial and or legal professionals before making any legal or financial decisions or investments. I'm Ndamukong Suh, and welcome to No Free Lunch, where we talk to experts and athletes about how the most successful people in sports manage their money and grow their wealth. What up, Danny, man? What we got going on today?
Man, it's been a busy week, man. I'm not gonna lie. The writers at The Athletic, I do not envy their job this week, man.
Tell me why. Tell me why.
All right, so there's been this, this betting scandal within the NBA. Some former players have gotten caught up and indicted. Terry Rozier, Chauncey Billups, and a couple other folks. So this is another chapter in the betting, book of sports betting. It reminds me, I was a young kid when the Tim Donahue scandal happened in the early 2000s.
I remember that too. Yeah.
And
there's a lot of smoke over in that fire.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But it's starting to feel a little different, So today we have Mike Vorkunov, a writer for The Athletic. He writes on all National Basketball Association, like business stuff, specifically for The Athletic. He's been covering this scandal from start to finish, and it's still unraveling. So we just wanted to have that specific talk with a guy who's boots on the ground. I'm sure he hasn't slept a lot this week, but I want to get some of the details because it feels crazy to me. There's indictments here, indictments there. There's the prop betting part. There's some of the gambling games part, and it's been a lot that I'm curious about.
Yeah, man, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, it hits close to home, not only because I got friends and family in the NBA, but Chauncey Billups, somebody that I know and have admired, not only from the standpoint of Junior Bridgman being our mutual mentor and seeing the success that he's had, not only in his NBA career, but let alone in his professional career as a coach and all the smart business decisions that he's made outside in hospitality and whatnot. Like just to see that go down here in my home city of Portland, Oregon, I really want to know, and I almost want to call some of my federal agent buddies to be like, man, can you give me some insight of what's going on? Like, is my guy innocent? Like, or what's going on? So, but nonetheless, man, let's jump right into it right here on No Free Lunch. Mike, what's going on, man? How are you?
Doing good. It's been a fun, busy last week or so.
Could only imagine, man. It's been insane. And we're obviously talking about betting and everything that's been going on, the hot news with Terry Rozier, Damon Jones, Chauncey Billups, and all these different cases that have kind of come on by the FBI. So I'm really trying to understand from all the reporting, like what are the large events and things that have been happening with these investigations from your perspective?
Yeah, I'm going to take you back. Well, wow, I think it's about a year and a half ago now. I don't know if you remember, but last April, the NBA banned Jontay Porter, who's then a center for the Raptors. Found out that he was tipping off sports bettors, found out that he was betting on the NBA. And then he got charged and indicted and arrested by the Eastern District of New York, by the feds out of there, the summer of 2024, along with 4 others. And so that kind of lay dormant for a while. And what Jontay Porter was accused of doing was manipulating his performance so that people could win their prop bets on him. And the feds continued their investigation, and, we continued to report on it. Found out in that time, the investigation as part of it, they're also looking into college sports. There are some games that were a little questionable there, some bets that were a little questionable across college basketball. And then, finally, October 23rd, there was over 30 arrests across the country.
Wow.
If for two indictments, one being a sports gambling ring, which is similar to what Chauncey Porter pled guilty to. Terry Rozier accused of taking himself out early from a game so that people could win bets on him, including someone he knew, a friend who then took the winnings, drove through the night to get back to Terry. And then others who were, in the NBA, tipped off sports bettors who then, that money that information went downstream. They placed bets on them. And the other second part of it is an indictment that alleges that there were these rigged poker games across the country, Miami, the Hamptons, New York City, in which former athletes like Chauncey Billups, like Damon Jones, who's a former Cavs guard and was kind of an unofficial assistant coach for the Lakers of the last few years, helped lure in, potential victims who were scammed out of money, right? They had these rigged poker games with these X-ray tables and rigged shuffling machines.
Wow.
And so that I think, according to the federal government, that took out over $7 million of winnings that, that Chauncey and Damon Jones were alleged to also take a cut of as part of their part in the scheme. And so those are the two things that happened earlier in October. And I think we've all been trying to figure out what's been happening ever since.
No, thank you for explaining that. I mean, it's been a lot to digest, to say the least, over the last couple of weeks or so, and all the breaking news and understanding like there's so much information that's out there and how it's all been tied together and not been tied together and what pieces are with which cases and whatnot. But I think something that is important for our audience to understand is, could you briefly explain what a prop bet is and how that all works in the betting systems?
Yeah. So this is right at the heart of kind of what's going on. This was what the Chauncey Porter case was about. This is what the Terry Rozier situation is about. Everyone kind of knows you can bet on money lines, right? Which is whether a team wins or loses a game. You can bet on the spread, which is whether a team wins or loses a game by a certain amount. But there's also this thing called prop betting, which is, say you're playing in the NBA, I can go bet on whether you score a certain amount of points, grab a certain amount of rebounds, dish out a certain amount of assists, hit a number of threes, and I can say, hey, I think you're going to score more than 10 points. Let's say that's where the line is. Or you're going to have less than 3 assists, right? And we see prop bets now for like everybody. It's not just like Jason Tatum. It's like the 12th guy on the Celtics, right? And that's been exploited. Like Chauncey Porter was on a 2-way contract and they bet on his over-unders. The fact that you could bet on an over-under for how many points the guy on a 2-way deal, which is not even a standard NBA deal, how many points he'll score, that's kind of crazy. But that's what's at the heart of this. And this is the same thing with Terry Rozier. They bet on his prop bets and he took himself out after, I forget, but let's say roughly like 12 minutes to make sure that, he didn't hit, according to the federal government, the number that they bet, the under on. And so the NBA has tried to do a little something about it. They pushed the sports books to take away under prop bets for 2-way players, but Terry Rozier made $90 million. The contract he was on was a $90 million contract. And so this is now kind of at the heart of the discussion of, professional gambling and legalized sports gambling.
I'm trying to understand, like, what's the methodology around what value somebody who's going to be on a prop bet and not be on a prop bet?
Yeah. I mean, I think if you're thinking about like what's exploitable or what's to like crime, right, to illegal sports gambling, the thought and the argument was, after the Chauncey Porter situation, is like, if you're on a 2-way contract and you're making roughly $500,000 a year, maybe that's someone who's not making enough money that they can be exploited in such a way where, they'd be willing to manipulate their performance, right, in the way that he did and he pleaded guilty to. And it's a question of, should you be able to bet on like the 10th guy on the basketball team, right? Like someone who's probably not playing. Like, can you even have, aside from the possible criminality, right? It's like, can you even have enough information on someone like that? Like, who is that bet for? And now we see with the Terry Rozier allegations, it's that it doesn't even matter how much money you're making, whether you're a 2-way contract or you're a star player. There is no salary proofing potential criminality, right? Like potential exploitation. And so it's kind of fascinating. And that's, a lot of the talk has been lately, like, should they just get rid of prop bets? Is that a good way to kind of make sure you can layer some safety into this system?
So I'm also curious on the flip side. So we just talked about prop betting from the player's perspective and them not being targets of being taken advantage of and putting in a compromising position. But how does the information from I guess bookies or the systems that are making these bets in the house, how does the house get their information to be able to say, hey, I'm actually going to put up a prop bet on the flip side, and this is how I'm getting my information of saying it, this over under is accurate at 6, because they're not just pulling that out of thin air.
Yeah, no, it's a very good question, right? Like, I think some of it, they have their own, now everyone uses data. They use kind of their own algorithms to set these lines. I mean, I also think the further you go down the line of who you set a prop bet on, it's probably a little bit of guessing too, right? Like, this guy's averaging 3 points per game. Maybe we'll set it at, 2.5, 3.5, something like that. And it's a good question. It's part of this discussion. And I was wondering, like, Ndamukong, for you, I mean, from like a player's perspective, did you ever feel like an extra layer of pressure or noise from fans when it comes to the betting aspect of these things? Like, how does it trickle down to you?
Man, people betting on me, that's the wrong thing to do, because I could care less about your bets at the end of the day. As long as I'm getting a win and getting sacks and TFLs, that's all that mattered to me when I was playing. And honestly, I think it's different from NFL players, especially on the defense side of the ball, because for the most part, you're not really looking at individuals from a fantasy perspective. It's just a collective defense for the most part. And yes, I think they have like some specific ways where they can take defensive players and you can put a team together from that standpoint. But honestly, I've been wired since I got into college. Like, betting is not okay. And it's just something that I never did, even to this day, when like now I can bet if I really want to. And people ask me for advice and my opinion on doing their own bets, but like, I just don't have a desire to do it. Like, people who know me well are like, if Suh's willing to put his house up and bet some real money, he's got an unfair advantage. And I usually like to have control of that unfair advantage, aka I'll beat you one-on-one on basketball. Like, let's go play. And I'm going to bully you and get layups and dunks. So if that's how I like to bet.
Do you ever get approached by people, by like bettors, about information, or like, I guess basically solicited?
No, I think people know my character and understand, like, I'm not giving any information away, especially intentionally from that standpoint. And it's just not something that I care to be really involved in by any means. Like, I'm so focused on other endeavors and not only the sport that I was playing and trying to win and trying to make sure everybody was good to go. But then also from a standpoint, like, you even think about it, it was an unwritten rule and really a known rule in all the teams that I played for. You don't discuss injuries, let alone not only your own injuries, but also teammates' injuries. All that stuff is kept in house and keeping it tight from that perspective. So there was no question. Like, I'm not answering. I didn't even talk to the media half the time. This is where I'm now. I get the opportunity to just be unbiased and just talk, say whatever I want to now on No Free Lunch.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like, you mentioned the injury stuff. Like, that's what was exploited here, right? Like, Damon Jones, is a friend of LeBron James, was around the Lakers as kind of an unofficial assistant coach. Like, if he found out that unnamed player 3, a star player on the Lakers who seemed to be LeBron, like, that he was sitting out a game, he sold that information, right? Like, the same thing the next year with another Lakers player. So even just finding out about injuries is something that can eventually be, exploitable. That might, that's valuable to bettors. Like, I can't even imagine what it does to trust within a team and among teammates if you feel like someone might be using that information for something else.
I'm curious to understand, like, from your perspective and viewpoint, how does the NFL and the NBA try and mitigate and understand that there's huge ramifications on the betting side of things, and especially when it comes to players' availability, injury reports, as we've been discussing, like, how do they mitigate those risks and those ramifications of that information getting out? Like, do they put in secure systems, and like, how does that all come together? Because it's very important also from the game planning perspective of our game you need to know that information. Like if Lamar Jackson's not playing, my game plan completely changes. Mm-hmm. So like, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, it's funny. It's like a question of how much leeway do you give teams for gamesmanship, right? Mm-hmm. Versus, hey, sports gambling is real. It's legal. We're business partners with all of them. Like the injury report matters, right? Like everyone kind of like, oh, he's probable, he's questionable. What's the difference? It matters, right? Like that little bit of that morsel of information matters. And like the NBA, they sent a league memo to teams earlier in the week where they said we're gonna try to relook at the way that the injury reports and teams share information for the injury reports, because that was something that was exploited in those indictments. And so it's a good first step. And I'm sure the NFL, like the Lamar Jackson thing happening 3 days after the indictments, was not a good look for the NFL, because that's the information that bettors are looking for. Mm-hmm. My question is, you can put in these rules, these tighter safety nets of let's get the information in quicker, be as truthful as you possibly can. But there's still that lag time, right? Like there's still that lag time from when you tell a player he's not playing because your team is tanking and you're just not, you don't care about winning this game. You're sending him out, or he's hurt and we haven't updated the injury report yet, or you're not sure if he's playing. And like that information can get out. Friends of the player, families, like you don't know, coaches, like you just don't know who has access to it. And I don't know how you shut that down totally.
Yeah, and you mentioned gamemanship, because it's truthfully, that's how my lens looks at it, and is like, all right, if I know I'm going into a game and there is a teammate that is like, I'm for sure going to miss it, but it's nobody's business to know that information just yet, whether it's a running back, a D-end, or whoever it may be. As a head coach, I'm not releasing that information right away. I'm going to also have them, hey, they did walkthrough today, but they didn't do practice today. So it shows, hey, they actually literally participated in a segment of our practice schedule, but they didn't go through the full practice schedule of participating in practice. So you're not lying, you're not doing, but at the end of the day, when Sunday comes, their chances of actually participating in that game is probably 0.01%. And so having that understanding, like you have the other team thinking about all these different things that they have to go through and how they have to prepare for somebody, that you've got them distracted when you're slotting in somebody else in that position and going from there. So I think the injury report is like, on the flip side, you can get fined if you don't release the proper information, or you tell a white lie, as they may call it.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, Lamar Jackson did practice in full on that Friday. He was on the practice squad, right? And that differentiation matters. That's the difference between playing and not playing. And you're right. Like if the NFL wants to take that seriously, they have to find the Ravens, don't they? Like you got to let them know, like you can't mess around like this. Even if it was I think John Harbaugh said, one of my assistants or whatever incorrectly filled out. Well, you got to let them know. You got to take that seriously and do it yourself.
I guess a good follow-up to this is, FanDuel, BetMGM, DraftKings, they're all official partners of the NFL and NBA. Like, is that not a conflict of interest?
That's a good question. I guess in one way I would say no. I think the one thing that's been made clear in those 7 years since we've had legalized sports gambling is that everyone's in the business of getting people to bet more, right? Like they're in business
They're
together.
Just paying for eyes. And I could see it as a true marketing ploy versus saying, hey, we're not feeding them information. They pay to be marketed on our platform, but that's as far as it goes. And again, I don't know the intricacies of those conversations and those contracts. I would love to see them.
I would say where you're right, and there is a conflict of interest, is that the sports books want one thing, which is they want a handle. They want more handle, right? They want more bets being placed. They want to make more money. That's their revenue. For the leagues, one, I think if you care about your players, you want less gambling, right? Like we've seen so many pro athletes say they feel like they are nothing but a bet to so many fans, right? They've seen rudeness escalate over the last few years as betting has escalated. They've seen, people sliding into their DMs, people just being, I'm not going to use bad words here because I don't know your cursing standards, but, being not nice people to them, right? Like in person, not in person.
Ignorant at the end of the day.
And so why would you want to allow that for for the players in the league, right? Like I understand you make revenue, but like there's got to be some, I feel like, protection there from allowing them to happen. And also for your fans too, allowing more betting and sports betting into the bloodstream, like, and getting them to bet more. I mean, if you're allowing betting to happen, it's so that most people lose money, right? Like the house always wins. That's, people say that for a reason, right? It's, you're probably, for the vast majority of us, if you're betting, you're probably not winning. Like these books are not just doing this for charity so you can get a sweat on a Sunday. They're doing this to make money. And so to kind of create this infrastructure where they're being lulled into more sports betting, lulled into potentially, for some folks, problematic gambling, gambling addictions even, like that's exposing your fans to something too. And so that's where I think the conflict of interest comes in. But the profit motive is what it is. They make a good amount of money off of this. The leagues do, the teams do, the media companies do, right? Like it's all around. Having said everything you said and knowing that this gambling is something you should avoid, why do you think there is this culture of gambling for professional athletes? Across multiple sports, we've seen it.
Honestly, I think it comes down to the competitive edge. It's funny seeing the Chauncey Billups piece come out. My wife and I talked about it, and she wanted to understand like what all took place. And I was like, babe, I really don't know. Obviously, got a lot of care for Chauncey and his family and understanding. Hopefully he is truthfully innocent from that perspective. But obviously I don't have the facts of that. But our conversation kind of went to this viewpoint of saying, like, we don't know why there is this focus of gambling. And other than that, it's on your fingertips. And it's maybe potentially a high that somebody is looking for. And I could never understand it. Like in the locker rooms that we had, guys are playing dice and they're doing these different particular pieces. And I'm like, I'm about to go to my meeting room and go get on a Zoom and like read an email or something. Like you guys just like, there's a competitive edge that goes into gambling. And like, I'm the top dog and I'm winning this and I'm winning that. And it also, there's times where it became very detrimental on the team because guys would literally get in fights over this stuff. And so I think it just comes down to that competitive edge. You're trying to drive some, you no longer can play sports anymore for somebody who's retired, but I can gamble on something that I know about and I can get a high because I'm winning from that perspective. Because I think it's that dopamine side of things. Like, because I mean, I've gone to Vegas before. I've played roulette. I've played dice and all these different things. And when you win, like you're on cloud 9, let alone like cloud 15, 20 and so forth and so on. But there's also down in the dumps of like, I lost $500. Like I'm sick. Like I'm so sick that I lost this money. So I think it's that give and take of people sometimes just let it get out of control and aren't able to keep it in a box that is not compromising to them as a character and as a human being from that perspective of, again, knowing right from wrong.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, the competitiveness of it, I can see how that gets people carried away.
No, it's something that's going to, I think, always be a conundrum because obviously money moves the needle and it's part of the revenue streams that go into these big organizations of the NFL, the NBA, WNBA, so forth and so on. And to say, hey, you're going to remove that, like it's detrimental to both sides and all sides at the end of the day. So there's just trying to find that fine line, ultimately, like how it can just play. Everybody can play in the sandbox, and there's hard cut, fast, black and white rules of what it comes to from a player perspective, a coaching perspective, and other people outside of the business or people that are in crucial positions to have this unfair information. And really, that's what I go back to remembering in college. Like, we're just not allowed to do it. And if you're tied to somebody, whether that's wife, kids, your friend, close friends, like you're just not allowed to be able to put yourself in a compromising position. And that's really the hard and fast rule that me and my family lived by when it came to this. But ultimately, man, Mike, this has been a great conversation. I can't thank you enough for joining here on No Free Lunch. And we'll definitely have to keep in touch and see where this progresses. As you said, there was 30 plus arrests over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. This is definitely, I don't think, the last we're going to hear of all this going forward. I think this is going to be something we talk about for years to come.
Yeah, and actually, you know what? There's something that I think is curious. Like, I think it's only going to get worse, unfortunately, before it gets better, especially from the collegiate level. And especially as you look at NIL, all these different particular pieces, and these young boys and girls that are 10 times more impressionable to be taken advantage of. And that's where you got to have really smart people in and around them that can support them, not only family members, but mentors and advisors from that perspective as well.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. The one thing I try to reckon with in my head, but can't make sense of, is that this generation of college athletes, just let alone college students and going forward, they grew up with gambling. Like, they're a generation of gamblers. And there's a generation of gamblers in college sports, and they're going to progress to pro sports. And it's been, to you, like you realize early on in college, hey, gambling bad. Like, let's not do this.
Yeah.
It's different when it's been in your pocket since you were in high school.
Yeah. And that's true. I mean, it's accessibility. It's, a click of a button on your cell phone. Thank you again.
No, thank you for having me on. This is great.
It's time for the Confidently Curious question, where we ask questions that are one step ahead. Sponsored by T. Rowe Price, where they believe that asking better questions can lead to better outcomes. So my Confidently Curious question of the day is, what is the real estate zoning that allows for retail, office, and industrial uses? A, home zoning. B, park zoning. C, commercial zoning. The answer is C, commercial zoning. This office that I am sitting in right here, right now, where I am shooting no free lunch, I had to go through the city of Portland to change the zoning from residential R5 to commercial zoning CM1. And was that a challenge? But well worth it, because now I can shoot no free lunch. That's our Confidently Curious question for the week. Thanks to our sponsor, T. Rowe Price, for modeling the power of better questions. T. Rowe Price proudly sponsors No Free Lunch. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the podcast participants and do not necessarily reflect those of T. Rowe Price. Their sponsorship supports the platform and does not imply endorsement of specific content or perspectives. Man, final thoughts there. It is incredible how conflicting and such a conundrum that this world sits in from a business perspective, from not only the world of sports and gambling, and it's all intertwined, partnerships and all these different things. But I think ultimately you got to look at yourself in the mirror and say, am I making the right decision on gambling on this particular bet, or whether it's a prop bet or traditional bet, or you could just do like me and say, hey man, I'm gonna beat you one-on-one in basketball. You can see me anytime you want to. But again, I think we've got a lot to figure out as a society on how we want to move forward with the gambling world, and especially for our youth. I think it's very important for our youth because they can gamble at any particular point in time at the tip of their fingers with their cell phones. And we got to educate our youth and kids of what's good and bad, and not creating, again, that conundrum and putting themselves in a bad position. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe to No Free Lunch on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.